Good morning, everybody. December 8th is traditionally the day in Zen that we, in our school, that we acknowledge Buddha's enlightenment. It's not December 8th yet, but since this is our lecture day, we're going to talk about it today. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with the story about Buddha's enlightenment, Buddha left his home. He was a prince, left his home, and studied for 7 years with various teachers. Each one of those teachers, he was quite successful in his studies, kind of virtuoso, but none of the studies worked for him. He didn't feel like any of them really got at what he was looking for. So he decided finally that he would sit under a Bodhi tree until he had some kind of realization, which is what happened. He did. And so we have Buddha's enlightenment. Later on, we're going to do a little play, if you will, with several voices in which we're going to read a traditional account of Buddha's enlightenment. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think that would be fun. I'll do it after the lecture. So there was a well-known Rinzai monk. His name was Kokushi, and he lived from 1281 to 1337 in Japan. So he describes the one who responds to Buddha's awakening, or what we would say our Buddha nature. This monk, he described this as meeting the Lord and Master, or in our case, meeting the Lord and Master or the mistress of the house, or we could say, if you're familiar with these terms, the host and the guest. So this house, which has a host, is our body. The monk goes on, Kokushi goes on to say, the body is a house, and it is the master of the house who is known as the original face. So the master of our house is our original face. So this master or mistress or host is our original face, our true nature, which is the particularity, our particularity. We are a particularity of all of reality's presencing. It is continuous practice. This true nature is suchness. It is Buddha nature manifest. And in this metaphor, we're saying of suchness, continuous practice, Buddha nature, original face, as being the mistress or the master of our house, our true nature. So sometimes I think we're not sure about this mistress or master. We're not sure whether or not they're home. Maybe they stepped out for a while. Or somehow we moved into the home when they were off on vacation. Or maybe the master or the mistress is drunk on delusion and sleeping it off somewhere in another part of the house. Or perhaps they're having a cup of coffee at the kitchen table. In a kind of bemused way, they are watching us running around, yelling, crying, "Master, master, mistress, mistress, why aren't you home? Where did you go? Please come home. Please show me the way." So where is the true host, owner of our house? I would say that a lot of the training that we do in Zen, in Buddhism, a lot of our stories that we tell, all of the lineage stories that we have, are about finding our true nature. And this true nature is realigning ourselves with what is. So this is why much of the activities that we engage in are about centering and finding equanimity. Equanimity about impermanence, equanimity with our suffering. Much of our training is about realizing that we are part of a vast mandala of life, all of life. The life in our immediate sphere, the life with our friends, the life with our enemies, the life with those who agree with us, the life with those who do not agree with us, the life with strangers. This whole life, the life with our pets, the life with plants, the life with the earth, this continuous practice that we're all doing, everything in this earth is doing this practice. The chair you're sitting in is doing the practice. The chair you're sitting is supporting your practice. And it has its own life. We don't know. We don't know what that life may be. But we acknowledge that it is sentient, and we acknowledge that it is valuable in and of its own right. But all of this manifests within the particularity of our life, not someone else's. All of this is about the master being home. All of this is about finding out what is our original face, being comfortable with that, seeing that, manifesting that, integrating with that. So often we think that when Shakyamuni Buddha sat down under the Bodhi tree, we see that at that moment he matured, sitting down, presencing himself for his life, really fully integrating in a non-intellectual way. Just this, just this. In that way, he matured and he became, manifested who he already was, which was the master of his hut, his original nature, no longer asleep in the corner. Keizan, one of the founders of Soto Zen, said, if you want to know the undying person in the hut, how could it be apart from this skin bag? If you want to know, if you want to meet, if you want to manifest this undying person in the hut, in your house, your original face, how could it be apart from this skin bag? This skin bag here, your skin bag. And yet, somehow it just seems like often it's somewhere else, some other person that we are not. So it's good to know, even though we may not know who the master is, the mistress of our house. We may not know sometimes who or where or what they are. It's really good to know that they are not here. It's good to know that they are right here in this skin bag, in our own house. Now, we can be misled by this statement about our own house being our original face. Sometimes we're misled because we think that what we think is our original face is actually the face of our delusion. That's one of the reasons we practice, is to try to discern the difference between the two. So our own house is our body for sure. The other thing about this house is it's also the body of all bodies as one body, as all bodies manifesting in their particularity. But I would say that having this vision is very, very important. Without it, we cannot manifest and bring forth our original face. But at the same time, it is this skin bag who must do the work. It is this skin bag who must find their way. But from the perspective of the universality of this skin bag, the hut's pretty big. It's the entire universe, without beginning or end. And at the same time, it's our little house. It's our little house that eventually will decay and fall down. Realizing this, incorporating this, is part of our original face. Because this is true, our particular karma will lead us upon a very specific path of our own before we can meet our original face, face to face. So it's not someone else's life. It's not someone else's karma. We share a universality as human beings. Thank goodness, because if we didn't, we wouldn't have practice. We would have no way to relate to all the ancestors who came before us. We would have no spiritual paths because everybody would be completely, totally unique and different, completely separate from the other. But in actuality, we share this universal nature as human beings. And because of that, we have these various ways of meeting our original face. And yet it is still our particular karma. It is still our particular life. And so we have to walk the path with our own karma, walk the path with our own life. This very specific path of our own is the way into the way that we find this mistress, our master of our house. So how do we meet this person who's living in this hut, this skin bag, this original face? How do we find them? How do we dialogue? So just like Shakyamuni Buddha did, we have to fumble around. We have to face our problems. We have to go down a lot of blind alleys and dead ends. But I would say to you that if you're listening to this lecture, your original face is awake and at home. All of us, our original face is paying attention because it is that aspect of the self that brings forward our desire to listen to the Dharma. So our original face is never not home. Traditionally, we're told that Shakyamuni Buddha had innumerable lifetimes building up to the rebirth in which he became our Shakyamuni Buddha, lifetime after lifetime. Traditionally, we're told in early Buddhism and in Theravadan Buddhism today that that is the path. We're also told that in schools like Tibetan Buddhism. But in our school, in Zen Buddhism, we say that it is in each moment in which we may see our original face. It is never not hidden. It is never not there for us. So that's why we practice. But here's the thing about it. I think it takes us a long time to figure out exactly what this original face looks like. We have an idea about it. And that idea is not what it looks like. And that's part of going down these strange and winding ways and dead ends, is that we are thinking to ourselves, oh, this is what it looks like, and it doesn't look like me. It's a perfect version of something, of a person. And the specificity of it, it's the perfect version of ourselves without problems. We think that's our original face, and that's not who we are. And so we're running around looking and looking and looking for this original face. We're not willing to sit down. We're not willing to be present for who we are because we don't want to be who we are. We want to be this idealized version of who we think we should be, or who we think Buddha is, or who we think a Zen master is, or who we think the perfect Zen student is, or the perfect daughter, or the perfect son, or the perfect father, or the perfect mother, or the perfect brother, however you want to define that to yourself. And so we're running around, we're looking for this thing, but you know something, that's not it. That's not the original face. Our original face is still at home. Our original face is sitting at the kitchen table, maybe in a bemused way, watching us running around, feeling empathy for our suffering. That's why we practice. We practice in order to see, to begin to have a glimpse of what is actually our original face. That original face is still sitting in the hut, never left the skin bag, still right here, but we can't see it because we're looking for something else. So here's the thing about practice. We don't necessarily see how this happens that we see what it actually is. One of the reasons that we don't see what's actually happening is because we're looking for something else. So it's necessary in practice to throw ourselves into practice, maybe half-heartedly, but we're still there doing the practice. We sit zazen, we do the rituals, we do refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and we don't know what's happening. We're just somehow compelled to do this thing. Some of you have been practicing for a really long time, and I would say we've got the bug. We can't help ourselves. Something about it resonates for that person at the kitchen table. That original face saying, yes, yes, that's it, that's it. That's what I want to do. That's what I want you to do. We are not different. So we do it, and we do it year after year after year. And I will say that over time, change happens. But while we're doing it, we may not see what that is. Probably won't see what that is. And we feel resistance, and sometimes we feel joyous, and sometimes we feel ecstatic, and sometimes we feel depressed, and sometimes we say, oh my God, I'm such a total failure. I'll never be this idea that I have about what the perfect Zen student is. And then we wear that out and something else comes up. So this path, this karmic path, this path of practice is embedded in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. The way that functions in temple practice is, and I'm reluctant to say this, please do not put anything on this. Don't put a head on a head here. The Buddha is the teacher. That doesn't mean we're perfect. In refuge, the Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma, the teachings, the Sangha, all of us together, enacting the Buddha way. So we have to find a path with a teacher that is wholesome and resonates with our karmic situation. And then we should stay, even when we don't know what's happening or how it is happening. And that's when I think we start to realize and able to see who this person in the hut is, who is our original face. Who is that? What is that? So we wake up, we let go of our concepts based on these incorrect ideas. Suzuki Roshi said about Buddha's enlightenment, he said, when Buddha attained enlightenment, he said, Suzuki Roshi said, it may be better to say about him, he completely forgot everything. This completely forgetting everything is Shakyamuni Buddha completely forgot all the preconceived ideas he had about enlightenment. And he just sat down and allowed his life to come forward and meet him without any ideas. But again, of course, he didn't do this in a vacuum. He did it after years and years of struggle. But finally, he refused to be snowed in by all the static that was swirling around him, and he grounded himself in his life as it was. So that's what he did. He just sat down, just stopped under the Bodhi tree and waited to see what would happen, what would come up for him about his understanding of reality. And again, this was based on all of the work, all of the problems, all of insight and lack of insight that had happened for his whole life up to that moment. So I would say, there are no shortcuts here. Our life has no shortcuts. There's no doors cutting through the maze. We have to walk the whole path. So he sat down under the Bodhi tree. And then we say, in our tradition, we say, and then the morning came, the morning star of Venus arose. And we say, Shakyamuni was awakened by seeing the morning star. But Suzuki Roshi said, no, he was awakened by forgetting everything. And Rujing, Dogen's teacher, said about Shakyamuni's awakening, he said, now Shakyamuni goes about deceiving others by saying that he was awakened by the morning star. Shakyamuni goes about deceiving others by saying that he was awakened by the morning star. So don't be deceived by your ideas about who and what is enlightened or who or what you will become. You have to say something. So Shakyamuni Buddha says, I was awakened by the morning star. But it isn't just the morning star. It's the totality of his life. There isn't just one moment. Even in the moment of his awakening by the morning star, this was triggered by him forgetting everything, as Suzuki Roshi says. But don't be deceived by what that means. Don't be deceived by what it means to say forgetting everything. You will still have likes and dislikes. You will still struggle, even though you are forgetting everything. But you will be less and less and less pulled around by your delusions. We're not striving for some perfect place, some perfect response, some kind of otherworldly perfection. We were striving for, as I would suggest to you, what we are striving for is to not be pulled around by our delusion, not to enact our delusion. That's waking up. Again, Jokowan Dogen says, Buddhas are those who are not in delusion about delusion. So Ru Jing said, again, he's deceiving others by saying that he was awakened by the morning star. So don't think that Shakyamuni sat down with no history or karma, and he looked up at something outside of himself, and he suddenly got it. He wasn't awakened by the morning star. He was awakened by the pecking from the inside, his original face, pecking from the inside of the shell. And the pecking from the outside, reality's continuous practice, pecking. Student-teacher relationship, pecking. Temple practice, pecking. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, pecking. Outside, inside, outside, inside. What's outside? What's inside? Original face, inside the hut. Original face, outside the hut. Pecking back and forth. Your master, your original face, is drinking coffee at your kitchen table, pecking from the inside to break you out of delusion. The whole world of your life is suchness, pecking from the outside to break the shell of your delusion. This manifests as your teacher, the Dharma, and Sangha. This pecking from the outside is very specific and it cannot be enacted in a vague or intellectual way. We can only do it by living and walking our lives, our life, not somebody else's. Thank you.